Well, hello there. Hope you're doing very, very well. It is Q here, and it is 3:06 p.m. February 17th. Wow, February already. It's been a while since I popped online, and what you saw when I had Sublime open was just the text blurb I have and I use when I introduce that, hey guys, I'm streaming now, which is always very random, very impromptu. Anywho, so for this particular stream, I was going to work through how to kind of go about designing a component for mobile web that worked kind of like this. So what you're seeing right here, this is the simulated iOS device that you can get with Xcode. So folks on Mac OS, you have Xcode that you can get for free. And you can simulate an iOS device, which allows you to test out some stuff. Very handy for mobile web development. But the thing I wanted to kind of work out was on mobile, for secondary kind of actions, they can be presented in a view that looks sort of like this. So in this case, this is probably not the best example, but we have some sort of overlay modal sheet thing that comes on top, and you have a list of actions that are kind of at the very bottom. A slightly better example would be something like this. So here, this is the messaging application. And if I click on one of these icons, you can see that there is this draggable overlay thing. And once you drag it to a certain point, that being when this sheet touches the top of this, it expands to its kind of full view. And you can, of course, close this by clicking X, or you can swipe it away by dragging it down, like so. It'll snap back to its original position. You can also dismiss it by clicking the grayed out area, that being the very top, right? But this one, yeah, there is an interesting kind of, hey Timothy, hope you're doing very, very well, man. There are kind of interesting zones for this thing, where like if I were to start dragging this thing up, maybe around 10, 15 pixels or so, maybe 20 pixels, it'll jump up to this thing. Oh, sorry, it's when this touches this gray thing at the very top. And when I start dragging this down, it doesn't really click in until I drag to a certain point. I don't know what the official term for these zones are. Typically in the past, the number I would use to kind of calculate these things, I'd call them thresholds. So once you dragged to a certain threshold, you've hit that number, then it would trigger a certain action. For in this case, it's like, oh, if I'm dragging down, if I hit the number, then dismiss this sheet or collapse this sheet. Otherwise, return it to its previous position. Something like that. Oops. So yeah, this is the kind of thing I want to try to build for mobile web. I believe Mobile Gutenberg kind of has these experiences with the kind of block tools that you can see, which is cool. And all of this kind of came from a discussion between Diego, Sarah, and myself when we were trying to figure out drop-down interactions. Yeah, it was drop-down interactions. This is a very, very quick prototype. But this drop-down thing, and he had mentioned, and this makes total sense, that these particular drop-down menus don't work very well on mobile. I agree. It's something that I've experienced myself, not in the things I've worked on. Like if I were to go to another website or something and they have this kind of non-native drop-down mobile menu, is often typically difficult to use it with my fingers. And the kind of very rough idea I had was like, okay, what if on desktop we have this kind of drop-down menu thing, but on smaller displays we have something that looks like this. Oh shoot, you can't see. We have something that looks like this, which is, I can't find an example of that from the iOS simulator. But on iOS, at least from my phone, from what I can see, you have certain menus that present actions like this at the very bottom. You have a cluster of actions. I don't know what they may be, like share or edit or something, and there's always oftentimes this kind of dismissal close thing where you click and then the menu kind of goes away. So yeah, this was an idea I had tinkered around with. I think it works kind of well. So it's like, if you're on desktop, you get the regular experience, but if you're mobile, this one's a little, this one can be a little bit more touch friendly. Geez. Sorry, I messed everything up. Yeah, this can be a little bit more touch friendly, so we can do that. But I wanted to kind of think about this a little bit more holistically, where, okay, cool, we have this particular kind of mobile experience, but also it'd be really cool to kind of add this support. I don't know what this would be like on desktop. Maybe just a regular modal. Like on desktop, this would just be a regular modal, but on mobile, maybe we can do something a little bit more fun with it. Oh man, iOS so slick. So maybe I'll prototype that out. We'll see. I don't have anything planned. This is an interesting thing about this prototyping stuff. It all kind of exists in my head, kind of gathering information, doing some research stuff, and then I'll just like, we'll just see if this works or not. I'll probably be using this library just because it's worked out very well for me in the past. We use this thing in the new kind of G2 components stuff we've been adding to the Gutenberg, WordPress Gutenberg, and also I've used certain parts of this within the Gutenberg, some controls I made for Gutenberg as well. Not a lot, just the input that allows you to kind of click and drag to update the values. I think that's the only place I've used it for now. But this thing works very, very well. Let's see. There are some examples where you click it and there's bounding boxes. That's kind of cool. You can drag and hopefully there's some sort of animation. Yeah. It knows how to snap back into its original position with some elasticity. There's a lot of math or whatever that goes on behind this thing that allows it to work the way it does. And there is another one. There was an example where once you drag it to a certain position, then it clicks and then it does a thing. That's really cool. Yeah, not sure. Not sure where it is. Not sure. Oh, here we go. Yeah. So you can set up certain trigger points for it to do something. So in the case of this, once it hits a trigger, then it'll go into another state. In this case, once it hits this area, it'll change its color or something like that. So we can try to set up stuff like that. Anywho. Oh, you saw that sandbox. Thanks, man. Yeah, it was a very, very quick kind of test just to kind of see how this thing kind of felt. But yeah, it would be cool if, we get an experience like this, right? But, to make it feel a little bit more native mobile, we can add swiping things as well. So once you swipe down, then you can dismiss it and it'll go away. So let me try to build that mechanic. It's something I've done before, but I don't know. Let me try to do it again. What is I don't know, create a new story somewhere, work in progress. Sure. Swipeable menu, swipeable sheet. Man, naming things. Sheet dot stories dot fine. That's what it's called. I don't know. Man, I gotta tell you, the junior me, I would get so hung up on the names of things where, I kind of had this idea, but I was so stuck on what do I name it? What do I call this directory? And then I just gave up and I never even tried. So I learned from that mistake, and how I go about it now is just name it whatever the heck. It doesn't really matter as long as I can just try my idea. And then I'll just fix the name afterwards to name it something not so awful. Export function default. All right. The function returns a hello. That's how I often start my thing. Let's see. Probably need that. Nope. All right. Import view from // index. Okay. And let me pull up the story. Book which should be that. And it's not fired up. Great. So let me fire it up. ARN start. Speaking of naming things, I had a question. What makes you choose something like flex and flex item versus flex.flex item? That's a good question. So, flex plus, so flex item, flex block. Those are the two kind of children components to that. And then you have something like this: flex dot item, flex dot block. So the word wise, besides that, the benefit of having something like this, and this is something I kind of like, this is my personal preference, but I understand certain projects are set up this way. So the cool thing about this is if you wanted to use, say, item, flex item, and flex item block, and it was set up in this way, you can actually just do this. This is just like a JavaScript thing from hi. So once you just import this, this automatically comes with flex item and flex block. So you can just use it, dot item, and so on. Right? However, if you name it like, if you create the components and name it like this, then you have to do this. They're separate things, if that makes sense. The period basically makes those items like part of that parent thing. So the reason why I like that is I don't know. It reduces how gigantic the import statement is, you know, especially at least when you're working with components, they have lots of subcomponents. You don't have to, you import one thing, that being flex, that being dropdown, that being menu, and then you use all the little parts that come with it versus having to import like 17 different parts. That's more of a preference thing. The other thing I kind of like about this as well is it more clearly demonstrates the tightness of that relationship between the child and the parent, right? Like this is like indisputable that flex item, like this item kind of belongs to flex just because of this kind of period binding relationship that you can see from this setup. But I mean, this it's more based on like naming convention alone versus actual how they're kind of built together. So, I mean, this is the kind of setup that WordPress WordPress components uses. Personally, I like the kind of sub component children one. It's all preference. It doesn't necessarily matter too much. There are pros and cons. So the pro of something like this, at least, is I think from a code kind of splitting optimization perspective, if for example this was never used, then they can filter that out. But if something like item and block belong to flex, and let's pretend this is never used, that code gets included just because, you know, it's attached to it. So that's it. Yeah, I like the period syntax as well. But it ultimately doesn't matter too much. What matters, I think, is that this, and this exists in the library. That's the most important part. Whether the period goes there or not, as long as these things are in the library, that's the most important thing. Yeah. Yeah, the code splitting stuff, it's a whole nother thing. Let's see. Do I have my sheet? Yeah. Okay, so I just have hello. What do I want to build? I want to build a draggable thingy. React, use gesture. And how I figure out whether, like, what to name things, how to structure things, is I just look at different libraries. The go-to ones I go to are, the go-to libraries I look at are Shopify Polaris, that's one. Google React Material UI, that's another one. Atlassian Atlas Kit, that's another one. What'd you call it? Chakra UI, that's another one. Twilio has paste. There's a bunch. And just take a look at them, kind of get a feel for what feels like it's like this is a pattern that most of them kind of use, and then try a couple of them out. What feels good to what feels more intuitive to write, what doesn't, and then it just shape my decisions based on that. Because I mean, if whatever these folks are using and is working for these gigantic companies where they have, you know, hundreds and thousands of developers times third-party developers that use their stuff, if it works for them, it'll probably work for whatever it is I'm trying to do. In other words, just copy other people. that usually works out pretty okay. Use drag from React. Use. All right, let me just create some function, call it an example, and do something with it. By the way, really appreciate you tuning in, Timothy. You've hopped into one of my streams. I really appreciate it, man. Drag as use drag, and then we'll return this. This is drag gestures. Oh no, the bind drag gestures. So you spread it, put that there, bind drag gestures, fire it. Now let's render the example. So here, let me just you get drag props. Let me just console log this. So what you should see now, hopefully this works, is I'm going to drag around the word hello, and we should see a gigantic log of console things. Yeah, there we go. So this is all the properties that, thanks for streaming. Oh, anytime, man. So this is basically all the spit out information what you get from that dragging library. It's very handy. You get, oh man, they do all the math for you, which is great. Like how long, with the distance of your drag, the delta, the direction, and whether something is like a swipe, is it a tap, is it a touch, are you using a wheel, all this stuff that, that I don't have to do because this thing already figured it out. Cool. Let's see. So let's say I want to adjust the position of something based on wherever it is I drag it. And I want to lock the drag to just like up and down. So let me just style this element. So instead of using a view, let me just create something. I don't know. Sheet is styled.div. Let me make it with 80%. Height, I don't know. 30. No, let's make this a little bit bigger. 50 VH, sure. And background, let's make it blue. Okay, so now I have a sheet. I'm going to put a sheet right here. And I'm going to add like a surrounding thing to it. Let's see. So that right now, there's no real consistent way of how I'm creating these styled components and writing the CSS. It's just whatever is faster. That's a key to prototype. Just write whatever is fast, and you just get it done. Position. Make this one absolute bottom 0, left 0, right 0. Let's just snap to the very bottom. So now we should see a gigantic blue square somewhere here. Yeah. So now I want to align this in the middle. We'll just do margin, something like that. Great. Right. Now I want to start this. Let me just make the color white fonts so we can see the word hello. All right. So I have a gigantic sheet thing at the very bottom, but that's fine because I just want to work with the shape. I need to align this thing kind of at the bottom. So let's have its starting position to be like, how should I do this? The height of the thing, and then it needs to, let me just make it a little bit taller, some random value like 52. So now it's like around something like that. Now I want to push it to the very bottom, which means I need to do bottom 100%, maybe? No. Yeah. And now the starting position, let's just say, I don't know. Top is minus 50 pixels, minus 100 pixels. Sure. Why is it doing this double? That's weird. So now I should see a blue little chunk at the very top. No, I don't, because I did something wrong. That's okay. Let me just view this. Hopefully this goes somewhere. If not, I apologize. But yeah, this happens sometimes where it's like, oh, I have an idea. I'm going to try this out. And then nothing really happens because I did everything wrong. Oh, that didn't work because I didn't position it. Position relative. Nope. Still didn't work. What if I did 0? Where'd it go? Where'd this thing go? Bottom 0. 50. Oh, went all the way to the very top. I need, there we go, minus 100. So now if I did top minus 10, still not working. Interesting. Minus, yep. And then how do we start this? Relative top, maybe top is not the right answer. Maybe it's margin. Margin, like once I'm done with this kind of garbage code and I want to implement it for realsies, I'll figure out the real thing. But for now, I just want this thing to work. I think it's not working because there are certain, like, these bottom minus 100 values or whatever is working against me. That's okay. Yeah, probably, yeah, I was trying to be clever and thinking that I was going to type a CSS variable. That's probably it. Okay, margin top's not working for me. That's okay. I don't want to use transform just because I'm probably going to use transform translate to do the actual movement of the thing. But I don't know. Let me just try. Minus 50 pixels. Still not going to work. Okay, it's fine. Maybe bottom. Interesting. So if it's there, then we can do top 100%. Did that work? There's some way to make this thing work. I don't want to have to hard code numbers to do this, but okay. So this is where I give up. I'm just going to hard code numbers to do this. And then I'll figure out the rest. Because like positioning the thing, that's not my main thing I want to do. I want to figure out the drag stuff. Okay, so now it's all the way off screen. That makes sense. And now I want to show a little bit of it. You know what? I'm just going to forget this thing. Bottom. Cool. Great. So now I have a little guy. Oh, right. Let me do something here where it's like, position absolute. I'm going to have another view that wraps the whole thing, maybe. Or I need it so that, okay, so right now I want to simulate off screen, right? But it's not off screen because we have the scroll bar thing here. So we actually need to lock the body so it doesn't scroll. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to do this. Top, bottom, and then you just overflow hidden it. Cool. So now I have this guy at this little fellow at the bottom, and nothing's happening. So now if I drag it, it's still giving me numbers, right? So let me just kind of drag props dot delta, I think. So now if I drag it up and down, you can see that we have some delta things being spat out, right? I only want to pay attention to the y. This one gives you the coordinates like x and y, that being x being the first one, y being the second one. It's kind of cool. So if I drag left and right, you can see that the first number is changing and the other one's 0. If I drag up and down, you can see that the second one is changing. The first one is 0. I think you can, if you did diagonal, you would be able to see both of them change. It's a very, very nice library. And you can also lock it. So you can change the axis, I believe. So axis, let me just do Y. That means that it only accepts swiping up and down. If I do left and right, like it should not really register. Yeah. Cool. So what do I want to do? I don't know. Let's just do const position or x, y. Anytime I have to think x and y, I have to draw it because I can set x. Set y is React use state. Y is that. And let me just do this. Const x next is drag props.delta. So I want to if drag props.dragging. So this lets you know if you're dragging or not. If you're not dragging, then return because we don't do anything. So we have the next value. Want to set the next value. Set the previous is previous plus next. I know this may look like I don't know what's going on is nonsense right now. Kind of is. Once you've done this enough, like me, then it'll like kind of, you'll get used to it. But for now, it's like nonsense. I get it. Const style is, and then we have a transform. We have translate. We translate x, y, and then we have the number, which is right here. And then we add a px. So now if I put the style onto, whoa, interesting. What am I dragging when I'm doing that thing? I'm dragging the sheet. So it would be this. Cool. Let's see if it works. Do you believe? Yeah. So now if I'm dragging, you can see I'm dragging the sheet, right? And it's going up and down based on my movements, which is cool, right? I got that working. But I also want it to like snap to a certain position because like so we don't ever want this to happen. Yeah, boom. We don't ever want this to happen where the end of the sheet can be exposed. I believe there's something here where it's like threshold or something where it's like, oh, you cannot drag beyond these bounds. So if we check out framer motion, which has drag gestures and stuff built in, which the new components do use, but I haven't really been able to figure out a good way to use this particular library yet when it comes to drag gestures. Other things, great. Drag gestures, I'm still unsure of. Example. Keyframes, variants, drag. Yeah. So this framer motion thing, there's something called drag constraints, which is cool. So, oh man, here's why I love this library so much, even though I don't at the moment use a drag kind of API. To make something draggable, you just tell it, oh, I want to be able to drag you, and I want to, these are your constraints. You can only move within these bounds. So now this thing magically is draggable, and if it hits a constraint, that being minus 50, 50, and stuff all around, you aren't able to really drag it past that anymore. Like there's some elasticity to it. And once you let go, it snaps back to like its maximum range of where it needs to go. And it's just done by like these 6 lines of code. It's amazing, the developer experience of this. Like I want the new components to be able to feel like this, where you write like a couple of lines and this thing is like super powerful. Yeah, like check out this experience. You drag it to the left and then, oh yes, that's a no. And it's so responsive to like wherever your finger is. And this thing has built-in touch support, so it works on mobile and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, framer motion has nothing really to do with whatever I'm doing right now. I just wanted to mention like drag-based libraries typically have some sort of bounding box or constraint that prevents it from being dragged a little bit further. And that's kind of what we need. Like we need it to like stop around this area. We can't drag beyond this point. I don't really want to math it inside of here, but I might have to. I don't know. We'll see. Mathing won't be too hard. Drag state, utilities, rubber banding, distance. Options, bounds. Here we go. There we go. Bounds bottom 50. Okay. Man, I don't know if this is gonna work because this is a VH number, right? And VH is like a responsive value. So for demonstration purposes, let me just change this to something a little bit not that. So that we could just make it 1000, and we'll have the starting position to be minus 800. So we have let's see, bounds. Bottom is I don't know. 800 somehow. Math happens, and we should have some bounds. Maybe? Please work. Oh, crap. It's just giant. Yeah, how does bounds work? 50? Yeah, it just keeps going. It doesn't. Oh, I get it. So how bounds works is per swipe, it can only go a certain amount, I think. Top. No, this like stopped working for me. Top. The bound is maybe. There we go. Yeah, this is not the right one. So what we can do is we can use our friend Interpolate. This is something I think I pulled. I stole this function from Framer Motion. Not Framer Motion, from React Spring. Interpolate? No, I gotta clamp it. So import clamp from Lodash? Yeah. We'll just do this real fast. So we'll clamp this new number, and the minimum is 0. The maximum is how much is our maximum thing? 800 or something, right? So no, yeah, I think. So let's see. Did this work? Oh boy, this is mad. Why is this mad at me? What is this number even? I don't even know anymore. Console log y. 0. Oh, right. Minus 800? Min is minus 800. Max is 0. I got things mixed up. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I can't drag beyond a certain point. Like in max is 800 is actually kind of gigantic. Let me change this to 500. Let me change this to 300. 300. Okay. So now if I drag up, it snaps there. Like I can't drag beyond this. And I can drag down, and I can't drag lower than that. Like ideally, we should be able to drag all the way to dismiss it. And here we should be able to drag. That's the maximum it can go. So now we can do a certain thing where I'm thinking. So in kind of draggable things like this, they're using, so in this case, React use gesture. They're updating a number, Spring, that this library understands how to use. They have this kind of animated dot element thing here. So it's paying attention to certain values you give it. In the case of like X and Y, top, left, or whatever, it knows how to animate into that new value. But in this case, we're just writing the style directly. We're not doing anything fancy with it. And with those types of libraries, that setup, what you can do is you can force the value to apply immediately, which is helpful for drag gestures, right? You want that immediate response. Alternatively, is you don't have an immediate thing. So when you like, say I drag up to this certain point and it needs to snap to here, right? It needs to do that expandy thing. Then it needs to know how to transition to that point, which is how it does it by default. I'm sure there are like probably examples of how you're supposed to do this. I'm just like I'm just building this from scratch based on my interpretation of it. And this also kind of highlights like how much thought and how difficult this kind of stuff is, and why it's so great that stuff like Swift UI and perhaps some things from React Native just kind of do this for you, or rather iOS and Android just kind of do this for you if you tap into their APIs. And if you want to replicate this on the web, you basically have to build all that stuff yourself, which is in the same vein as things like color pickers or date pickers or whatever, or things like that. It's a lot that goes into this kind of stuff. So if I hit a certain threshold, it should jump to a certain height. If I don't, then it should say dismiss, right? So let's say if I drag up, well, I need to pay attention to Y, I guess. Console log Y. Basically, you have to build all that math. The threshold of like when to trigger expand, threshold to trigger the collapse, inside of this drag gesture. And all of this would go into some sort of like generic hook where it's like, I don't know, use, drag, expand, collapse or something. And then you would bind that to this card sheet that you're building. And then you'd be able to give that kind of card sheet swipeable hook thing callbacks. So like once you expand it, you can do an on expand hook if you callback if you need, or on collapse it'll do a thing. But anyway, let's just try to get this threshold stuff to work. So what I've done is, whoa, something's not. Hang on. Console log drag props dragging. True, false. Right. So if not, then console log that. Oh, I'm console logging twice. Okay, cool. Right. So what I've done is I'm going to console log the kind of location of this thing after I let go. And what I want is if I have, we'll set a state. Expanded, set expanded, React use state, false. So if I stop dragging, and if it's not expanded, and again, this logic is awful how I'm writing it right now. It's just me figuring out the mechanics of it, and then I would kind of go back and refactor. So if it's not expanded, and let's say D is the drag distance, so it would be the math of absolute Y. Let's see, and the D is more than dis. Yeah, dis. If the dis, that being the distance, is more than 20, then expand. Otherwise, collapse. So let's give it a shot. So in the very beginning, it should snap to the very bottom. If I drag up and I let go, I don't think I dragged enough, so it should collapse right there. So let's pretend it collapsed. If I drag up here, which is enough, it should say expand. Great. So now it's aware of drag distance, threshold. Let's pretend there's an imaginary line somewhere here. Once I've passed it, then 20 is a little bit. 30. Let's just do 30. Yeah. So once I've passed it and I change the state, then we should, for example, force it to go up. So expand, then let's just do something like set y is 300, set y is 0. This will snap immediately, right? If expanded, we need to, okay. Yeah, this is terrible. Bear with me. So if you expand, then do this scenario. Otherwise, do this other scenario. Distance is more than. Oh, what is the math? It's distance from the top, that being is less than, is more than. Oh gosh, hang on. I have to console log dis. Okay, so now I expand. If I drag from here and let go, oh, it's not console logging stuff. If, oh, right. Set expand is true. False. There we go. Right. If I come in, yeah. So now I can see the number. I need, if this drag distance is less than the max minus the threshold. That's why you put like variables for these things, like threshold and stuff. So that way it's like one variable, you can control it all. Then you collapse it. So you would do this. Otherwise you invert it. There. So now you have something like this, where if I drag up, it snaps to the very top. If I drag a little bit, it stays at the very top. If I drag more, it snaps to the very bottom. So now we just have to like animate this in a certain way. Yeah. So the other thing that I've noticed, I mean, this is fine, but the other thing I've noticed as well, at least on iOS, is you have that overlay, right? So that overlay in the back, let's just draw that real fast. We have, what is this card? We have a Z index of like say 2. Let me just draw the overlay, which looks like this. Bottom, top, Z index of 1. Okay, we have a background of some shade of transparent black, 0.8. Okay, so now I should have some overlay thing. Yeah. The thing I've seen on iOS is like the more you drag it, the darker or lighter the overlay kind of becomes. So there's oops, forgot to put myself on do not disturb. There's some sort of relationship between the amount, the drag distance, and the overlay, which I think is really, really cool. Let me see if I can build that in to kind of make it look nice. Yeah, I think in the beginning there isn't one, and once this snaps up, then there is one. So in the very beginning, the opacity is like 0, and when it's at the very top, the opacity is like max or something. Cool. Now, this is where it's fun. Now, let's add our friend, import interpolate from utils. Interpolating gestures is like one of my favorite things. I don't get to do it very often, so I'm super excited. Check this out. Cool. Const overlay style, and we have an opacity. Okay, interpolate. You give it a number, and then you specify certain ranges you want that number to kind of map to. In this case, we have our current y, which the bounds of that is min is 300, max is 0. We want to translate that. So minus 300 is at the very top of the range. So that we have that 1. And when it's 0, that's at the very bottom, which means there's no opacity. Okay, this may seem like very voodoo, like I don't really understand what's going on here. That's fine. Again, if you're not used to doing this, like this is like what's going on. But I wrote a blog post about this. Let's see, G2, I think I did. With my site, and then, animation interpolations. This is it. Right. So this is basically what we're doing. Darker, I think. Maps is a good way to think of it. Yeah. So in this case, we have an input, and we want to remap this thing so that 0 means blue, 200 means red. Anything in between is a mixture of those two. So if it happens to be half, right, like 100 is half between 0 and 200, it's some mixture of purple. So that's effectively what we're doing. It's just we're mapping the drag distance of the card to the opacity of the overlay. This is all theory, just because I've talked about it. I haven't actually seen what it renders in the browser. But let's see. Oh, I haven't done anything with this yet. So let's do style. There. Yeah. Yeah. I'm so excited. This is great. I love it when this happens. So yeah, right now it just snaps into place. It's not it doesn't transition, but here's what I can do. Const is dragging, set dragging. React, use state, false. Oh, my little design heart, just like, it's my favorite thing when like magical gesture based interpolation just works. Dragging. So what do I want? Transition. Let's try this. So transition. When it's dragging, we have null. Otherwise, we'll just do some sort of transition. So that's just going to make all of them 200 ms linear. Sure. Same thing for here. I don't know if this is going to work, but we'll see. So when I'm dragging, nothing happens. There we go. I want it to be a little bit faster. Yeah. Cool. So when they've mapped to each other, right? The swipe up and the swipe down. They know where their bounds are. This being the max, this being the min. And if I drag down a little bit, but not much, like there's a threshold I've set, then it would trigger down. If I drag, so now it's collapsed. If I drag up, but not enough, it'll stay down. So it knows how to do that. But I can also swipe up. I can also swipe down. Yeah. So let's try this on an iOS device. Xcode. Let me try this. It may work, it may not. We'll see. It's iOS simulator or something. Simulator, yeah. And I've added some logic that'll animate in between. So it'll only apply the animation when I'm not dragging, because we want the response to be immediate when you're dragging. That's how a particular kind of gesture-based animation feels fluid, when it's like an immediate response. But when I let go, please transition into place, that being at the very top or the very bottom. So, okay, cool. Let's paste it in here. Oh, this is a really cool thing about iOS Simulator, by the way. Like, localhost works. So I can paste this thing, and I'm in Storybook. Oh, yeah. Oh, wait. This is not working very well. Yeah. That's just because... that's a very interesting thing. So this is actually trying... Yeah. There is a problem here. So this is the problem with At least on iPhones, I've noticed this. You may have seen certain websites where, if you're trying, like they have some sort of scrollable box or something, and as you're scrolling, all of a sudden the whole page moves. This has been like a Safari thing for a long time, where it doesn't really know if you're trying to scroll the element or if you're trying to like swipe the entire page up. And there's like a conflict that happens. So that's kind of what's happening right now. Like it is doing my gesture okay, but like I have to be very careful or else I'll scroll the entire page. Yeah. So like if I'm very careful, yeah, I have to like it does work. So I might have to like figure out how to kind of adjust for this. Maybe. But it's kind of cool that it does work. And the most important thing is like it has to work on the phone. Otherwise, there's no point of building this, right? Like, cool. It kind of works on the desktop, which is neat, but you realistically, you wouldn't do this on a desktop. So on a desktop, this will most likely render as a modal of some kind. So just render like a box like here that you can dismiss. You wouldn't necessarily do this dragging thing. So it has to work on the phone. But, I mean, it's been, half an hour. I got kind of the mechanics down, right? I've established, okay, there's some sort of boundary box. There's a positioning mechanism. There has to be height awareness between the content box and the bounding box. There are thresholds of how much you can drag to kind of initiate a collapse or an expand. There is a constraint for how much you can drag up and drag down. You have to coordinate the drag position between the overlay and the sheet so that they know how to map with each other in terms of opacity and position and whatnot. And you have to handle animations in a way that feels responsive. So that being responds immediately on touch, on let go, it snaps into place with some sort of transition. Those are like the main mechanics. Maybe scroll lock after you touch inside. Yeah, I mean, I can try that here. Let me just do something where I just force the body to scroll lock. So I remember. Okay, let me see if I can do this. Safari. Develop. Oh yeah. So I'm inspecting element on this on the iPhone Safari. So let me just do the thing where it's like overflow hidden. I don't know if this actually fixes it because it's still. Oh yeah, cool, Timothy, that fixes it. Check this out. Thanks, man. You fixed everything. Oh yeah, but like, this works. This feels quite nice on the phone. Yeah, and I can't seem to break it anymore. Yeah, like whoops. And like once I scroll at the very top, it knows how to lock and do this. And the only thing I need to do left is if I click this while it's expanded, then collapse it. So this is very simple. Again, I need to refactor all this kind of stuff, but the main mechanics are kind of there. So let's do something like, this is the overlay, right? So on click. I don't know if click is the right one. It probably should be like on touch start. Yeah, since we're targeting mobile, let's just do that. So on touch start, what do you want to do? If const is expanded is basically y equals to minus 300. That's awful. I need to bind this in a different way, but it's fine for now. So if expanded, then set y is 0. Oh, I have an expanded collapse right here. Set expanded. Teehee. Set expanded is false. Set y is back to 0. I think I need an on click as well for desktop. On click. Yeah, there you go. So now when it's expanded, I click it, it snaps back into its position. I mean, in reality, it should like totally dismiss. It shouldn't just snap back down to here. But yeah, I think this mechanic is okay so far. The other neat detail I really like about iOS, let me just dismiss this thing, is how it handles the layering. Something I found interesting looking at map is when you scroll up the sheet, it bounces at the top, going to slides into place. Yeah, let me just check this out. Thanks, man. Let's see. Oh, yeah, this is what I was talking about. So iOS, they have this wonderful layer mechanic. You can see here, it's probably too difficult to see. Can I zoom in? No, I can't. But when modals come up, the underlying screen thing kind of goes in the background, and then now you see these two layers of cards. Don't allow. Does it bounce? It does indeed. Yeah. So this bouncing kind of mechanic or animation is something that we can add in as well. The motion libraries and stuff have physics in them that we can tap into for that. So that'd be kind of cool to kind of see. But the thing I wanted to highlight is, oh man, just playing with this. The multi-layer sheet effect thing. We actually have that mechanic figured out and built into the modal system. It's a small detail. Folks probably won't notice much, but for this new component library, assuming you're using the same modal, all modals are aware of each other because they're all tapped into this kind of modal system where when another modal appears, they know how to do this like layering effect. Hopefully you can see this. So once I add a new modal, you get that like, oh, the previous modal, it'll step back and the new modal will come in and kind of go in the front. It's all coordinated, like automatic for you. Like if you were to use a modal, doesn't matter where, like if it's coming from the sidebar, if it's coming from wherever, they know how to do this. They know how to do this effect. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to add a provider or anything. They already know how to do that. Yeah, this was one of the first kind of things I built when I made this component library back in summer of last year. Just because I knew this was a mechanic that a designer I worked with really, really wanted. And this was something I really liked from the macOS and iOS ecosystem. And this was the kind of level of delight and polish that I wanted to bring to these components. So yeah, this is my favorite effect for sure. And what's awesome about it is like it comes for free if you use the modal. So I'm sure I can tap into this as well to coordinate the sheet thing if I get around to building it, so that if you have sheets, you have multiple sheets or whatever, they know how to kind of act in that way. They have that awareness. So yeah, I mean, I haven't finished the thing I was building. I was going to prototype. Maybe I finished. I don't know. Is this considered finished? Whatever it is I had. But the main idea I think I wanted to kind of get across today, besides hanging out with you, Timothy, which is always a pleasure, is, gosh, I can't work this swiping. Come on, swipe up. Forget it. It's fine. Just talk through the process of like the why we kind of need to do this, and just prototyping, how I go about prototyping an idea and thinking through the mechanics that's required to building something like this. And then I haven't gotten around to this, but then I was like, okay, cool. How do we actually refactor this code so it's not like nonsense? Because right now it's pretty nonsense. But for me, I think it's just an exploratory thing. Let me understand the mechanics, and then I can explore it a little bit further. So I think with that, I'm going to end the stream. But thank you so much if you're tuning in after the fact. And of course, Timothy, thank you so much for tuning in live. Hopefully this was entertaining and useful for you. It was certainly a pleasure for me. And hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Catch you later. Bye. Wait, hang on before I go. Timothy says, I really love the concept of something like a modal automatically adapting to the sheet on mobile. Very swift UI like. That's the goal. That's the goal, man. Like, I want it to feel native. If that makes sense. I mean, it'll feel native if you're on Mac. If you're in Windows or Linux, it might feel a little weird. But like the UI I want to kind of, the experience I want to give, ultimately, I feel like it should feel kind of platform agnostic. Something that was just sort of like out of the way where the content matters. Like the thing you're trying to do matters, where you don't have to focus on like, oh, where's a close button, or where like all that kind of stuff fades away and disappears, because all of those interactions, patterns, gestures, and so on, they match the paradigms that the OSs and stuff that we're used to provides for us, that being iPhones, Mac OS, Windows, Androids, and whatever. Like I want it to feel kind of seamless, so that, yeah, the content is it, and the experience and whatever it is you're trying to do, that is the most important thing, not what, not necessarily what a modal looks like, if that makes sense. But anywho, yes, I'll conclude the stream for now. Thank you again. Catch you later. Bye.